we're following that old line from tech startups. The quote is, move fast, break things. Well, they're certainly breaking things. They're shooting first and aiming later.
Strong criticism from Trump's predecessor Tuesday night as former President Joe Biden made his return to the political stage.
For the details, we're bringing in Washington correspondent for The Hill, Drew Petrimoulx. Drew, what else did the president have to say?
Well, hey there, Niall and Robby. These were President Biden's first public comments since leaving office. He addressed the National Conference of Advocates, Counselors, and Representatives for the Disabled. And you heard it just a minute ago. The former president used the opportunity to speak out against the second Trump administration. Biden took aim at sweeping cuts to the federal government and the way they are being implemented. Much of Biden's focus was on cuts to the Social Security Administration. Take a listen to what he had to say about that.
Fewer than 100 days, this new administration has made done so much damage and so much destruction. It's kind of breathtaking it could happen that soon. They've taken a hatchet to the Social Security Administration. They want to wreck it so they can rob it.
Despite the harsh words, President Biden did not reference his successor by name. Still, the message, critical of President Trump and congressional Republicans, came through loud and clear. President Trump responded early Wednesday morning in a post on Truth Social saying, quote, Sleepy Joe Biden, the worst president in the history of the United States, has allowed millions and millions of criminals to enter our country through its very dangerous and ill-conceived open border. Sorry, but it's my job to get these killers and thugs out of here. That's what I got elected to do. The Social Security Administration also responded to Biden's remarks in a series of posts on X. The posts accused President Biden of lying and reiterated that President Trump has promised to protect Social Security. Now, and Robby, back to you.
Thanks so much, Drew. Appreciate it. Well, this was very interesting to see Biden back on the stage. I believe this is the first time he's really spoken out since exiting the presidency. Really the first time we've seen him since the Trump inauguration. Not really surprising to my mind to hear strong, strident criticism of what Trump is doing. You know, Biden, it's worth remembering, left office very unpopular. So I'm not sure he has necessarily even the heft that maybe Obama would have had to criticize Trump in, say, 2016. There is a kind of, well, I'm just fixing the things you really broke. That is kind of the attitude of the American people, that Biden didn't fix things in a satisfying way. But yeah, I'm not surprised to see this. Probably what we were all looking for is evidence of further decline in terms of his ability to speak at all, and I didn't really see any of that there. So
no,
I thought
I thought he was fine. I mean, I think that the argument he's making is an important argument, particularly from the Democratic side. Whether he is the best vehicle for that argument is a very different question. To your point, he left office with approval ratings around, I think the Gallup rating was 39%, so that doesn't suggest you have some enormous heft of public opinion behind you. Nonetheless, I thought the interesting thing about this was the focus on Social Security, from which the Trump administration is seeking to lay off about 7,000 people from the Social Security Administration. Our old friend Elon Musk, of course, has referred to Social Security as a Ponzi scheme. It is a system on which many, many millions of Americans, about 70 million, receive some sort of form of payment. So it is an Achilles heel for the Trump administration, and Biden was going straight at that in some of the footage we played there. The idea of shooting first and asking questions later, I think, is a valid criticism. I'm not sure if you saw, Robby, the thing where they initially were saying people making claims would have to appear in person at Social Security offices. Then they backed off that because it would be considered, I think, too onerous to many Social Security recipients. So I'm not surprised he's making the criticism. I think that it is in many ways a very well-founded criticism.
Yeah, this is an advantage that Democrats can, or it plays to a strength they have to call out Republicans who at one point, I think, more seriously considered doing something about entitlements. Now, despite the kind of Elon Musk Doge efforts to go after aspects of it, I actually don't really think there's a major legislative push to reform Social Security or Medicare in ways that I might appreciate, but would not be politically popular. That was one of Joe Biden's more successful political moments at, well, I think it was one of his State of the Union addresses where he said, you guys are going to go after it? They said, you're lying. He's like, great, good, then don't do it. And it was a successful moment for him. That said, I've been thinking a lot more and more. Maybe I was talking to Marianne Williamson so much about this because she's a very passionate defender of the entitlement system. You know, the MAGA coalition with the vibe shift to the right among young people, I wonder if this will continue to be as important an issue for Republicans, with younger voters being more and more part of the MAGA base, the Trump base. I wonder if there's going to be a little bit of like, you know, this is a benefit primary for much older people at the expense of much younger people, and to see what their appetite is going to be to continue being forced to pay into a system that I would argue they're not going to get advantages out of when they have that advanced age. So
well, look, I mean, when I was 20 years old, I couldn't have cared less what pension systems were, either in the public sector or the private sector.
Right.
So it does, I mean, obviously it's something that becomes more salient as you get older. It is worth saying that for all the understandable concentration on younger voters in the media, it is older voters who vote at the highest rates and with the greatest level of reliability.
And increasingly for Democrats, though.
Yeah, you know,
Interestingly enough.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it is, I think, notable that that happens for a start. I also think, you know, there are lots of different factors that play into people's lives in different ways at different ages. So traditionally, the pattern, of course, had been very different, where younger voters were very, very liberal, and then as financial and other pressures exerted themselves later in life, they tended to move toward the right. Whether that pattern has been permanently disrupted or disrupted in the long term, I think that's an interesting point.
Very much so. I don't know whether it's been permanently disrupted, but it's at least temporarily disrupted, and we'll see if it lasts. I'm always eager to engage, as you know, in generational warfare.
Yes.
Well, elderly people reaching their skeleton hands into my the pockets of my fellow millennials
people who
and Gen
have worked
Z.
all their lives and contributed to Social Security naturally don't want Elon Musk to be trousering the money and getting away with it.
All right. Next up on Rising, will he ever return? That is a question Senator Chris Van Hollen has as he jets off to El Salvador to get to the bottom of the Abrego Garcia case. We'll discuss.